Tokyo Ghoul Route A is the follow-up season to Tokyo Ghoul. It picks up right where the prior season left off. However, series creator Sui Ishida wanted to go in a different direction, break from his previous source material written in his manga. Instead of Kaneki fighting against Aogiri Tree, he joins them, creating a very different series that most fans weren't expecting. Now, before I ramble on for a little bit before starting this video, I want to put this timestamp up on screen now, where if you want to jump right to the changes like that, you can go ahead and skip to that time. Just check back in here before leaving any nasty comments. Route A also saw its focus shifted in a much more broad sense. Season 1 was very Kaneki and Ontaku focused, where Season 2 saw a much more massive cast of characters, setting the scene for the eventual and even more disproportionate blow-up character list that we saw going into Re. On my first watch of the entire Tokyo Ghoul series, I hated Route A. I really did not like what it became, even though it had the best possible setup from Season 1, where we get to really have the chance to develop on Kaneki's changes, to see who he becomes after Jason's torture. It was a very open-ended ending for me, someone who hadn't read the manga, and I was wondering where things were going to go in a primarily what I assumed would be Kaneki focused follow-up. Instead, we got a very expansive yet shallow look at the entire world that Tokyo Ghoul takes place in. However, with the urge to talk about the series once more, I looked at the thing I hadn't talked about yet, which was Route A, except mentioning it in passing as not being very good. However, on this second pass through, something was different. I didn't hate it as much, looking at it as someone wanting to appreciate the series rather than trying to dig deeper and find more of what I wanted from the ending of Season 1. Now, Route A actually has a lot of good ideas in it. The problem is, there's just so many ideas that nothing gets fully developed. I'm not just talking about Kaneki, but his shift is something that I welcomed. I like him becoming a more demented character. I like the idea of Toca having to step back and fight her own battle. That part was just executed terribly. There were also good aspects like Shinohara and Yoshimura's subtle rivalry of understanding, Amon and Ken deepening their rivalry, and there's just a lot of good things going on that I think, with the right focus, could make for a much better Route A. Another problem with all of this though is a lot of the ideas presented in Route A don't mesh. Season 1 worked when it was very focused. We were really only ever focused on maybe 2 members of the CCG, and the rest was Kaneki and Ontaku. But Route A, just in concept, creates a more flawed series. Kaneki leaving Ontaku means that the focus has to be split. You can't develop Ontaku characters and develop Ken at the same time. Couple that with the further focus on the CCG, more focus on Aogiri Tree, and a lot of focus to random third-party characters as well, and it just became a very expansive, very messy plot that buried its good ideas through fundamental flaws of the concept. With all of this in mind, I set out with the idea to see what I could do to tighten up the plot of Route A. Now, when I say tighten up the plot, I mean I'm going to pick the central concepts, themes, and ideas that I think made for the strongest Route A and focus on those things. That means that characters are going to be cut, scenes are going to be cut, and it will primarily lie along the same line, but curve in its own new direction. The start point and end point remain the same though. This means that it will still flow into Tokyo Ghoul Re in the same way that it did before, which honestly really wasn't well at all. I probably could have just thrown that part out and made my own ending, but I wanted to stay true to what the series wanted to be and just try to, through my own lens, magnify the good concepts as the focus in a more Tokyo Ghoul Season 1 aspect. This isn't saying that I think I'm some master of storytelling. I have a lot of stories that I'm developing for myself that I would one day like to flesh out, but I've never sat down and written a whole story. I've never studied the elements of storytelling outside of what I do on YouTube, where I'm looking at anime and picking out the aspects that I think create for a good story. So when I say fixing Tokyo Ghoul Route A, I mean fixing it for myself. This entire process is subjective, meaning some people will look at this and think it made Route A worse. Some people are going to look at it and think it made Route A better. With this being such a subjective topic, I can't separate myself from it and create something that's good for everyone, because storytelling and what we're going to like in stories is just very subjective. If you've been around for a while, if you've watched more videos on this channel, you know the type of stories I like, so I'm going to be focusing on those aspects. Also, it isn't going to be the complete setup that Ri needs, even though we didn't get that in the first place. That means that some characters who are more critical to the Ri storyline will not be appearing in my version of Route A. This is something that I wanted to avoid, but after a few days of running in circles trying to keep all these characters in and relevant, I just had to get rid of them. It frees up more time to develop what I wanted to. It lets me change scenes to better fit the themes that I think work from Route A, and it just had to be done. I'm sorry if you really like them, or if they're your favorites, or if you think they needed this introduction, but let's be real. Ri left a lot of things open and confused a lot of people leading into it. I don't think cutting characters more prevalent to Ri would really make that much of a difference. Also, because I am a novice when it comes to actually writing an entire story, this means that I'm not going to be giving you an entire script of a scene, telling you exactly which bits of action happen. I'm going to be going through a synopsis I made of Route A, where I crossed things out, added what I want to happen, and described things in a more overall general view. This also means that some small scenes or small cutaways weren't included in this, so I'll go over a few general notes to cover those. But I think that covers all my bases. Probably doesn't. I'll probably still get some mean comments about them, but you know what? It's fine. So anyway, enough rambling. I do that a lot. Let's get into what I like to call fixing Tokyo Ghoul Route A. Okay, so hopefully, if all of this works out, you will be seeing the same exact thing on my screen that I am synopsis-wise. I also have my notes over here. So, we're starting off exactly from where Season 1 ends and Route A picks up. Oh, also a note on the synopsis, it is not entirely in chronological order. It just takes some liberties with coupling scenes that have been cut apart back together. So, one of the first things we see is Hide heading towards the battle, but he never actually gets involved in anything and just kind of leaves. Now, we're starting things off on a weird note, because as a normal, regular human, there just isn't much for Hide to do. Now, he's still going to be relevant. I'm actually going to try to do more with him. He just can't be involved with the action, which is a big part of Tokyo Ghoul. So there's not going to be much for him to do, but I will try to keep him relevant. However, he's going to do the same thing, which is essentially pointless here in episode 1. There's just not much that you can really do with him. Now, the fight between Amon, Shinohara, and Iwa will stay the exact same with the owl, except I'm not going to have Aratas introduced. Now, Aratas, I think, are very pointless to the series in the same way that CRC gas is, but we'll get into that later. I just don't think they're actually adding anything. I think what they're trying to do is fix a problem that was created where the owl is way too fucking strong. There's no one out there who could reasonably beat the owl until Arima shows up. So I believe they introduced Aratas to say, oh hey look, these two guys have a chance now. But I don't like them. I don't think that's the right way to address the problem, and it only creates one minor inconvenience later, which we can fix if I get rid of them. So in my version of Route A, Aratas are out. From there, moving on to our next change is when Toca is fighting her brother Ayato. Now, in the original, Toca loses immediately. I'm changing that so that rather than losing immediately, Toca will actually put up a fight, but still lose, still come out of it battered, but not immediately. She's not going down like a bitch like she does in Route A proper. That also means that she's not going to sit there and take things. A lot of Route A was Toca watching things fall apart in front of her and doing nothing about it. Does that sound like her at all? This is the same person who ran out and fucked up Tsukiyama. This is the same person who heard Ken got captured, ran out, and was reckless trying to save him. She's not the kind of person to sit around and watch someone leave, or sit around and let her brother just berate her. She's gonna get mad at him. She's gonna be much less silent and sad, and she's gonna be much angrier at things going on, because I think that's more true to the character. Now, she will still end up in the same place that she does, but we're gonna get her there in a much different way. Now, this doesn't say that she isn't changed at all. I think the fight with Mato was shown to change her a little bit, but it's messing with her emotions, not her physically. So I think she can still do well in these fights rather than lose all of them. This also means that Ken, rather than swooping in and picking Toca up and saving her, is going to come in and save her from having to fight more, meaning she'll be battered but keeps getting back up to her feet, and Ken comes in so she doesn't have to fight anymore, and she will remain fuming and angry at Ayato until she eventually passes out. Now, another weird scene, which I think works but is just weird, I don't think there's a better way to describe it, is when the Onteku crew is fighting Noro. It develops him as a weird, creepy character that his head comes off and it just gets back on and he doesn't do anything, but I think it could be used a little better. So I'm going to leave that the same, but after his pager rings, they will continue attacking him, which prompts him to fuck up Yomo royally and quickly and shockingly. This makes Noro scarier, in addition to creating a reason why Yomo is absent until later on in the plot. This is not a good fix at all. I don't think it's good writing, but working with what I have and trying not to bloat the cast by bringing a character who wasn't relevant in when I'm taking so many others out, I think this is the best I could do to keep Yomo out of it. Also, it's a good time to talk about Aogiri Tree. I'm cutting a few of the members of Aogiri Tree, and I'm leaving Ayato, Noro, Eto, and eventually Naki because he's sadly relevant to the plot. Now, this really only cuts Tarata, so this means that when Aogiri is doing something, the Eto-Tarata pair is going to be replaced with Eto and Noro, because I think both of those characters can be played a little bit better to make them creepy and scary as all hell. So, speaking on Aogiri Tree and what I was just saying about Eto, this is a good point to talk about Ken leaving. I like that he does. I understand why he does after watching the whole series, but I think a lot of people kind of get hung up on that initial fact of why would he leave and join the people who just tortured him? Now, I think it makes more sense than what people give it credit for, but I also want to give him a reason to that we see at the same time he does. That means rather than having Eto just give him a quick glance and laugh and disappear, I want to have something different happen, where Ken sees a large figure destroying a bunch of CCG soldiers, royally fucking them up, one hit KO kind of stuff. They're just throwaway soldiers. I hate that I had to keep the throwaway soldiers and Aogiri Tree members in here, but the way this plot flows, they're sadly needed. So she'll be fucking them up, utterly destroying them, under the cover of dust, and when it fades away, instead of the large figure, we just see Eto. She does the kind of same thing as the scene I cut, shares that glance with Ken, laughs, and runs away. And that'll give Ken and us the idea that, hey, these people have something. These people are powerful. They could give Ken something he needs. And here we reach probably the most critical change of the whole thing. And that is when Ken leaves originally, Toca just kind of watches him go. She gets up, tries to go after him, but just gives up and lets Ken go. And I hate that, because that's not Toca. Again, that could be Toca, but we did not see enough change in Season 1 to say that she's that kind of person. Because this is the same Toca who ran out and fucked up Tsukiyama, and basically had to be begged to not rush out immediately and fight all of Aogiri Tree to save Ken. So is she really just gonna sit there after all the work she put into trying to get this boy back and just let him walk away? I don't think so. So she's gonna be furious with him. She's gonna get up, try to hit him, fail, try to stumble after him, and just berate him and yell at him the whole time, because I think that's what Toca would do. Whenever she had problems, she tried to run out and fight those problems. I don't see why that would be any different with Ken, especially given all the effort she put into him. It would almost feel like she's being robbed a little bit. And we're going to have her gradually shift into the more passive character she is for all of Route A and lead her into Ri that way. That's probably the biggest change of this is Toca's character. There's going to be no school at all, and there's a couple scenes we'll shift around to fix that. Now, the real episode 2 opens with a cold open, I guess you'd say, where a young Mado, Shinohara, and Arima fight the owl. I'm scrapping that entirely because I don't think there's enough time in Route A to try and bring Mado back like they did originally. He only shows up in a couple scenes. They're just kind of remembering him. I don't think that worked at all. So we're just cutting all of the Mado focused scenes entirely, and we will have Akira's memory of him, Amon's memory of him, do most of the lifting in that area. So that open will be replaced with this one, where Toca makes her way through back alleys at night dressed as the rabbit until she finds 3 ghouls feeding on a couple of humans. She's going to startle them, they're going to attack, she's going to pin one of them down, revealing herself to be a ghoul as well. She'll ask them for info on Aogiri Tree, they will reveal they have ties to Aogiri Tree, and she will express that that's good because she won't feel bad about what she's about to do. She'll kill the one that's pinned down, and then start attacking the 2 remaining ones. Now again, she fucked up Tsukiyama. Tsukiyama is a fucking powerful ghoul. I think she has it in her to fight off 2 low-level ghouls at once, 2 no-names. But she will still come out of it a little bit injured before fleeing the scene to head back to Onteku. Now, there's also a scene in episode 2 where we learn that the 9th and 10th wards have been taken over, and they introduce some new CCG members. Gonna be honest, I didn't even bother to learn their names. I'm talking about the really goofy ass ones. They're getting cut entirely. Fuck those characters, they offer nothing to the plot. They show up like 3 times, and then they're played as rivals for Enji and Irimi in the final couple episodes. I hated that. Made everything more bloated than it has to be. We're going to be cutting that down, changing those final scenes, so those characters are just cut entirely. This also means that with the CCG being more close-knit, when Washu would be addressing the entire CCG, or what we see of it, instead that's going to be Marude directly addressing the more close-knit group of the CCG that we see for most of the season. That's going to be Shinohara and Juzo, and Amon and Akira. That means that Takizawa and his partner, who I forget the name of because he's not important, are cut. Takizawa comes back, there's just not time for him here. I think it's much better to keep the CCG like it was in Season 1, squeeze it down, focus on what matters, instead of bloating it like it became. Washu will be introduced later to more fanfare, and again, Takizawa is just cut entirely. I know he comes back, but it's a cut that had to be made. So that's one of these small notes, is there may be smaller scenes where Washu or Marude are addressing a large portion of the CCG that weren't listed here. Those will all be changed to just Marude addressing this close-knit CCG cast that we've cultivated here. Now, episode 2 also has the first scene where Onteku is talking about an absent Toca and how hard she's studying and all this. We're going to replace that with Toca entering somewhat battered from her last fight, yelling off any help from the others, and she enters the top floor or back room, as I called it a few times, followed by Yoshimura, while Enji and Nishio remark about her recent violent and what they'll say is stupid behavior. So Yoshimura will follow Toca, ask her about school, which she blows off and just admits that she doesn't care about, and that she has no need for it when their lives are being threatened on every front, and that it's just better to protect themselves. And she comments on how the manager wouldn't know and slams the door in his face. Now this is the beginnings of developing a deeper relationship for them, because I think that's something that could have worked that they kind of threw in at the end of Route A, is that Yoshimura was like a father figure for Toca. because we know her and Ayato lost their father early on. We're going to try that, developing that a little bit more by showing how they're similar. By Toca thinking that no one knows what's going on with her, that she's going through something completely unique and original, and then coming to see through Yoshimura's story about his past that it isn't unique and original, that she has people around her who feel for her and can help her. So we'll get back to that a little bit later. Everything will happen the same for a little bit until we get to one of the first big CCG scenes where Akira is introduced. That's going to stay the same, except Amon and Akira are going to be tasked to investigate ghoul-on-ghoul violence in the 20th Ward, which is due to Toca's violent actions. Now, this is because they believe a big player like the Devil Ape may be back. Now, this is also a setup for later to create an Akira and Toca rivalry, which will also be used to develop Amon and Ken's rivalry. Rather than having a scene to develop Amon and Akira, a scene to develop Toca, and a scene to develop Ken, we're going to put all three of those together, getting much more value out of the screen time we have. So here, because Toca is not focusing on school, we won't get her scenes with Yoriko. I do like that relationship. I think one of the best parts from Season 1 was actually her forcing down her friend's food, but it just doesn't fit here, so we're not going to have that first scene, which is also pretty bad, and it's the most egregious, ooh, Toca likes Ken scene. So that's out of here. Now, the final change for Episode 2 is at the end, there's a scene where Ken's standing in a room, and there's a man scared, and Ken notices him, but just leaves. I think it's too early to start developing Ken as human again already. I think we can do that towards the halfway point and get a much better final product. I think this is the point to show Ken as the monster that the CCG wants him to be. So rather than just noticing the man and letting him live, the man's going to be trapped in that destroyed building. He's going to be afraid of Ken because Ken is eating a body just around the corner from him. Ayato comes in, says it's time to leave. Ken leaves with him, and the man peeks around the corner to see the body, and it's revealed that it's a ghoul because its eyes are still open with ghoul eyes, rather than just a human body, which is clearly going to shock the man. This is also getting more value out of the Ken's cannibalism subplot. So this is just trying to develop that a little bit more before we get into things proper, and it is going to be a little bit shocking. That's the intention of it. So Episode 3, Convoy Raid starts. Only thing that's going to change here, the One-Eyed Twins are not going to be introduced, which I believe I forgot to mention in Episode 1, where they are actually introduced. We're cutting them. I know, relevant to Re, they're actually pretty relevant. Can't do anything about it. There's no space for them in Route A. It sucks, but it's the only solution I have to try and salvage what I like about Route A. Also, a small note from Episode 1, the clowns are shown randomly. Fuck them. I hate them so much. They're so stupid. I hate that part of Re. We're not even showing them in Route A. We're keeping them out of it as long as possible. Episode 2, we're going to be taking a scene where Toca is spaced out thinking about Ken, and replacing it with Toca being absent from Onteku, and the others just expressing her concern for her. This will lead to Hinami entering, and Enji reassuring her that Toca's fine and nothing's going on, that she's just really busy. And this was a little decision I made to try and develop Enji as one of the opposite sides to Toca, where we see that a person can change from what she is and live a perfectly normal life, as well as making the emotional pull of his death later greater by having him be good with Hinami. Also, I'm not using Irami at all in my version of Route A. This is completely interchangeable between Enji and Irami. I think you could use either one. I'm going with Enji because I think he has a little more to work with him. I think he's a little more interesting. I like how they play together, but I think it's going to be better to keep one of them, make the viewer really care about that one character, and chop down the final section a little bit to create a greater emotional pull at the end. The whole book signing scene is going to play out the same way. And a big chunk from Episode 3 is where Nishio takes Toca to Kami for the day. That's getting cut entirely, and we'll be bringing that in, but a little bit different later on in the series. So for now, it's pretty much just cut. Small changes where the CCG as a whole is replaced by just Amon and Akira. We have This is something, a little bit of change in making, where rather than Takizawa giving Hide info on eye patch and everything in general, he's going to listen into Amon and Akira discussing the eye patch. They're going to see him, and he's going to meekly play it off like he was just showing up to make a delivery, which they obviously don't buy, and get a little suspicious of him. We're going to bring this in later to give him and Amon a deeper connection through Ken, which will keep Hide relevant, again, feed into that emotional pull of Hide dying at the end, and help feed Amon's kind of internal turmoil about if he really hates ghouls as much as he thinks he does. Juzo's gonna fuck up some steel at the research plant the same way, Naki's gonna freak out about Jason's death the same way, Ayato will ignore him the same way, and Ken's gonna try to help, but we're gonna put a little bit more in there, because again, I think this is one of those scenes where they're way too quick to pull the Ken's still a nice guy trigger. So instead, as Naki's failing to write Yamari's name, Ken's gonna throw Rize's quote at him, where she says, all the disadvantages in this world stems from a person's lack of ability, and he'll add on to the end, Yamari was no different. This is gonna give more to the gradual curve of Ken becoming himself again, because it seems like he took the wrong part of Rize's words to heart. I'm not saying anyone should take Rize's words to heart, but there is some stuff in there about playing the middle and how it wasn't helping anyone. But he seems to take out of it that he just needs to get stronger, that he needs to do whatever he can to protect these people. They're going to be taken away from him. Naki's clearly going to be upset about that. He loves Yamari, so he's going to try to hit him. Ken will floor him immediately because Ken's fucking mega strong now. And a crying Naki will recoil when Ken leans down to him again, only to look up or look out and down and see that Ken properly wrote Yamari's name. We're also going to remove Naki yelling, "You're a good guy, Ken," and just use this to show that Ken is a badass now. He's not taking shit. He is very hardened from this and a dark character now. But he still can't give up that he wants to help people, that's why he's doing this, which is why he writes the name and just leaves. Now, cutting the comedy scene entirely lets us move the start of episode 4 back a little bit. And it means that that means that scenes from future episodes are going to cascade up a little bit to fill the space we've created. So Amon and Akira visiting Coklea is going to start in episode 3 instead as the ending. And that means we're going to give more to Amon's backstory with the priest because it was maybe 30 seconds. We're going to use this to draw Ken and Amon parallels. But instead, he's going to be shown as a child of the orphanage, kind of a big brother to the other children. So he's going to be shown reading textbooks, he's going to be shown getting called off to help one of the kids, helping them read a big word or a couple big words from one of their books, and just doing big brotherly things for them, kind of a caring, smart individual before the same ending happens where Porpora eats all of the other children and leaves Amon. Again, it's probably the slightest bit forced, but I think this is a good thing to not directly call out, but use so the viewer can think to themselves that Ken and Amon are very similar, because they are, and that's something they play off of in their last fight and leading up to it. And episode 4 proper, which is still going to be all Coklea. This is the episode where things really fucked up, because Ken just gets destroyed like a bitch repeatedly. He kills Yamari. Yamari was a fucking strong dude. And Ken just, he's supposed to be a badass now. He's supposed to be a dark character, and he's none of that at the second episode 4 hits, because he just gets tossed. So Ken fighting Kamishiro is going to change. Ken is going to win the fight. He's going to come out on top narrowly, because Kamishiro is still strong. It's fucking Rize's dad. But he's going to come out on top without unleashing his Kakuja or anything, because Ken should not lose all these fights. He will lose, but only because he's already been fighting. Someone fresh is going to come in, he's going to have gotten beat up by a fucking like double S rank ghoul, so he'll be a little bit battered and lose the next fight, but he still has his Kakuja to pull him out of that. So instead, he's going to win. Then Eto and Noro are going to appear to take Kamishiro with him. He's still going to be awake, he's still going to be trying to resist, which we're going to use to amp up Eto being creepy, because she's going to say that they'll take care of him and do her trademark kind of creepy laugh thing as Ken leaves to go get Ayato, and it'll just cut there, letting us wonder what they're going to be doing to him. I think that's a good thing to try and give more to Eto and Noro. Amon and Akira versus Naki can stay the same, except a simple change where Amon is actually fighting Naki's goons in the background when Akira gets bit, instead of standing there doing nothing, because everyone stood there and did nothing and watched her get bit. I don't know why. Also, later, there's going to be no CRC gas used by Akira or in general. We're going to replace that with an influx of CCG soldiers, which is why we didn't mention in the first couple episodes that the CCG lost half its forces in that raid, so that they have the manpower to do that here and end the raid that way rather than with some random gadget that we never see again that makes you think, why wouldn't they just always use that? Ayato and Shinohara can remain pretty much the same, except we cut Arata's, so instead of his Arata being made from Ayato and Toca's dad, it's going to be his Quinke made from Arata and Toca's dad. Toca's dad. Again, that's the only fix we have to do is to get rid of the Aratas. Makes a little bit less sense because I know that Toca and Ayato's dad was more pacifist, more defensive, so him being an Arata, which is his name, as that armor makes more sense, but I think this is a fair trade-off for getting rid of a stupid gadget. Now, episode 5, Juzo and the twins don't exist, so that's cut entirely. We'll get back to what Juzo's doing at the end of this. So, still in episode 4 here, Ayato and Shinohara will play the same way, except Ken's going to enter to assist before Ayato can be finished off by Shinohara. Now, going back to what I was saying earlier, Ken is weakened. Ken was just fighting a very strong Ghoul, so he's kind of beat up, but he's still going to fight. He's going to hold his own, but he's not going to do well. He's going to slowly get worn down, which will lead to him bringing out his Kakuja. Now I'm saying bringing out his Kakuja, and I think that the Kakuja is technically a form, so I believe I'm using Kakuja incorrectly there, but that's how I'm going to be referring to it throughout. So eventually Ken will get tossed away, where Ayato is in between him and Shinohara. Shinohara will move to finish off Ayato again, which Ken will look up and from his damaged haze, see as Shinohara about to finish off Toca. Here we will transplant the scene at the end of his fight with Kamishiro, where he unleashes his Kakuja because he thinks he's too weak, which leads us into episode 5, just as he transforms. So this starts with Ken versus Shinohara. This time he will win pretty handily because he's out of control with this new power he just unleashed. And instead of eating Shinohara's Arata, he will take a few bites out of a non-lethal area from Shinohara instead. Just a couple. We still need Shinohara in play the same as he was normally, so he'll just get a couple bites out of the arm, nothing major, before Amon shows up. Amon shows up, sees Ken eating Shinohara, and this fight is going to be rebalanced a little bit as well. This was the stupidest part for me. This was the stupidest part of Rude for me. Amon shows up, cuts off all of Ken's fucking Kakuja bits, and wins, and calls it a day. I hated that. I think it's much better if Ken's in control of the fight, because he should be. This is an insane power. He's been doing awful shit to get himself. So he's in control, but Amon kind of has his number. Him and Amon have this weird connection where they know each other, where Amon wishes he could just kill him. He could just be a monster and just off him. But he knows Ken isn't. So he's going to talk Ken down a little bit. Kind of the same way he does, but instead of all at the end, it'll be spread out. As Ken slowly, we see him visibly control himself. We see him try to back down. So instead of getting everything sliced off of him, he's going to give up and have the same kind of ending where he says he doesn't want to eat anymore and that he hates what he's become. So that fight will be less Amon outright winning, more Ken wanting to stop. Now, addressing Juzo, because he still would be there with Shinohara, and I think he still needs to be there to balance out the sides, he will fight Eto and Noro. This fight will transplant all of his insanity, and will also show Eto's and Noro's. Now, for the most part, Eto's just going to watch, and Noro and Juzo are going to fucking go at it, because they're both insane. They both do insane shit. Juzo can jump and slice through entire fucking blocks of Quinke steel. He fucked up the twins crazily. He'll do all the same stuff here, but just against Noro, who clearly isn't going to be fazed by any of it because he's weirdly invincible in Rude. Now, the pager will go off. They'll go to leave because they're there for their purpose. They fulfilled that purpose. Juzo's gonna obviously not like that, go crazy, just start slashing everything. And in the dust cloud from that, Eto will pull the same trick as earlier, but in reverse, where we see this small figure become a massive giant one. She'll burst through the top, leaving Juzo behind in the dust, and that'll lead us to the owl grabbing Ayato and Ken and fleeing. Now, episode 6 is still cascading up a little bit, so the entire Shinohara and Juzo father-son kind of parallel scene moves up to the end of episode 5 here. We're also going to make a slight change to put that scene at night. And we'll transplant the scene where Amon asks Akira to get food with him for a second time up here. And this time he'll kind of coyly add in there that it's before 9 and there's a place close. It's kind of saying that he wants her to go with him, and there's no Takizawa, so this is the only person he's asking. So she'll accept because he kind of called her out on all the reasons why she couldn't go. And they'll run into Shinohara and Juzo, and we'll just have a very short scene, just a few screens, of them eating, having fun, and that will fade out to a scene of Ken binge-eating ghouls in Kakuja form. He'll eventually slow down, stop eating, and just start crying alone in this basically wasteland of bodies, and the episode will fade out there. And then I think, obviously I can't animate it, I can't show you what I picture it to be, would be very emotional, because we're showing these people who have exactly what Ken wants, and they're trying to take it away from him. Okay, episode 6. Don't worry, we're getting there. This is going to be long. I was hoping it would only be maybe half an hour. We're going to be well over that. I'm sorry, folks. So, Ken, there's a scene at the start of episode 7 where Ken struggles with his Kakuja in a dream. We're transplanting that from episode 7 up to episode 6. So that's the scene where Ken's widely eating from a pile of skulls, and Jason and Rize climb up him. The only change we're making there is that instead of eating from this random pile of skulls, it'll be bodies, and those will slowly shift to be his friends from Onteku that he's eating, not just random bits of meat. Again, here we just have a little bit more scenes cut. We have the scenes of Toca's replacement being cut because we don't need her at all. We have enough characters to fill those gaps. Again, focus on Enji and Nishio. So we won't have Onteku talking about Toca studying a lot. We won't have her not being able to focus because of Ken. So pretty much the scenes that could be devoted to them talking about her studying are simply changed to scenes talking about their concern for her, or Yoshimura and Enji discussing how their stories really are similar to Toca, where he's expressing his concern that, I know I did it, I wish I had these chances, she's wasting them, we really should do something. Shifting back to the CCG, so Hide will make a delivery to him. Amon will kind of call him out and say, hey, why were you snooping on this kind of classified info we were discussing earlier? And Hide will kind of play it off, say he knew someone who looked a little bit like the eye patch, but really downplay the resemblance. So he remarks how he kept thinking about how hard it would be if someone became a ghoul, because he's looking at someone who looks like his friend that's now a ghoul. Amon will kind of say, hey, are you feeling sympathetic for ghouls here? Like, they're kind of the enemy. And Hide will say no, but he would feel bad if a human all of a sudden had to live like that, if they had to become a ghoul, and that he'd want to help them somehow. This will again show Hide still cares for Ken, and kind of start giving Amon some more reason to feed into his inner doubt that maybe ghouls aren't the exact monsters he thinks they are. Now, this gets us, as you can see, a lot crossed out there, and even more later. This gets us to the single biggest episodic change in the entire fixed Route A. All of episode 6 after that is getting scrapped and completely rebuilt from custom. I like the scene where Amon and Akira and Takizawa all go out for drinks, but again, that's very singular. That's helping just the CCG side. This is the scene I was talking about earlier, where it'll be Akira, Amon, Ken, and Toca. So Akira and Amon will go to investigate the ghoul-on-ghoul violence in the 20th Ward. At the same time, Toca will go out from Onteku, where Yoshimura is going to ask her about school. She's going to blow him off, say, are you still talking about that, and leave. Enji will remark, I wish I had the chances she was wasting. And at the same time, we have a lot of shit going on at the same time, Ken is going to leave for Onteku. So the trip he makes in episodes 7 and 8 will be moved up a little bit. he's going to be making that trip to Anteku here. So we saw in, I believe it was episode 2, that Akira has some pretty good detective skills. She deduced some theories that no one in the CCG had come up with yet. So it's reasonable to assume that she'd be able to deduce some sort of pattern that Toca has, that she's always going out at this time. She's targeting these areas, the pattern leads to here. They'll follow that pattern and they will see Toca as the white rabbit fucking up more ghouls. Clearly this is going to set Amon off, but worse, it would set off Akira because this is the person who killed her father. So she's going to get furious, even more so than Amon. She will yell at him that she's going to handle this alone and that he just needs to make sure that she doesn't die and the rabbit doesn't get away. It's kind of a cheap way that a lot of people have pulled in the past and that I'm pulling right now to make a one-on-one fight when there shouldn't be one. But I don't think it's super unreasonable that someone whose whole plot line in the original was revenge for her father would do this when she's confronted with the person who actually kills her father. Also, given that Amon has already saved her before, and she doesn't want to just be someone that Amon's saving. So her and Toca are going to go off on each other. Akira will be yelling and screaming about how she took her father, how she took everything of her happy life from her, someone's husband, someone's father. And Toca will be yelling the same sorts of things. She just wants to live with her friends at Anteku. She just wants to have a happy life. They're not hurting anyone. And yet the CCG still wants to take that away from her. Now, the one advantage Toca will have here is she'll say that she knows what she was doing. This will be a callback to where she sees the ring on Mato's finger in season 1. She says she knew she just killed someone's husband. She knew she killed someone's father, someone that people loved, even though she couldn't understand why someone would love that man. And we saw that this affected her, that was kind of the first time she saw, I'm doing something pretty fucked up. And that's going to be kind of the point where she changes, where we've seen Anteku talking about all the reckless shit she's doing. We've seen her fighting pretty much every time we see her in this version. She's hurt or injured, or she's just not there and they're worried about her. And this is kind of her tipping point. This is where she says she's tired. She's been fighting for months, because this is 2 to 3 months after episode 1, where episode 2 starts. And she gives up and just refuses to fight and lets Akira just destroy her. Because even though it's not gone, as far as what Toca's been doing, her life has completely changed for the worse. She doesn't really see much of a point in it anymore, even though she's just blindly ignoring what she does have and the opportunities in front of her. Akira will go off on her, still mad, almost kill her. But this is where Ken comes in, hits Akira away hard enough to really take her out of commission, given that she was also already just fighting Toca. So Amon jumps into action, and him and Ken are fighting once again. Now, Ken's Kakujo will try to come out a lot during the fight. We'll see him visibly holding it back and controlling it throughout the fight, because this is the same exact situation where he did that earlier. And he really doesn't, he takes Amon's words to heart. He doesn't want to be just some blind monster that the CCG can kill unwillingly. He, in season 1, in episode 8, the first time he fought with Amon, recognized that he was the bridge between two worlds. He was the human and he was the ghoul, and he was the only one who saw their parallels. So here he's demonstrating it directly for Amon. He's saying, I'm not the monster you think I am, even after all this shit, even everything trying to take me over. I'm not going to let it happen. And Amon will recognize that. Their fight is going to kind of stall a little bit, and Amon's going to speak up and say, hey, they each have something more important right now. Akira is laying there pretty injured. Toca is laying there also very injured. They're pretty evenly matched because Ken really has to hold back a lot of his power. So how about they both call it, get help for the people that need help, and they'll finish it for good next time. Ken's going to accept, and Amon will leave kind of begrudgingly that he went against Mato's words that he always followed, where when the enemy is before you, stand and fight. Or in the sub, I believe it's when the enemy's before you, fight, even if it costs you your arms and your legs. And we will see him apologize in his thoughts to Mato that he did that. But we'll leave it a little bit open on whether he did it to help Akira, or because he really just didn't want to kill Ken, because he knows that they're more similar than they think, and Ken recognizes it as well, even down to the fact that they're each leaving this fight for the same reason. So Amon will get out of there with Akira, Ken will get out of there with Toca. So Ken will go to the place he was intending to anyway, and the best place to take Toca, to Onteku. He'll be about to turn the handle to enter when he'll hear Hinami, which shocks him a little bit. He doesn't want to walk in himself fucked up and Toca almost dying and just scare the shit out of Hinami. So Enji will be in there calming down a worried Hinami as they're closing down because it's nighttime, so there's no customers, it's just those two in there. She'll leave to clean off the tables around the back corner, at which point Ken, hearing that and hearing her walk away, will enter with Toca. Now Enji will see this, be a little bit shocked, but they kind of have a mutual understanding there. They'll share a glance saying, hey, we don't want to freak Hinami out. Enji will tell Hinami to make sure she stays back there because he's getting a surprise ready for her. He'll motion for Ken and Toca to make it up the stair, or make it in, I believe up the stairs, into the back, take care of her there. Once the doors close and they're out of the way, Enji will tell Hinami that he's ready and kind of try to make up a surprise on the spot. So he'll say something like, hey, do you want to learn how to make Sen Takatsu's favorite coffee drink? Hinami will recognize that's just iced coffee because that's what she got together. He'll say, who told you that? She'll say, Sen herself. So he'll kind of be stuttering through it, stammering a little bit. You can clearly tell he's trying to make this up, but he really cares about her. And he'll say, hey, there's a secret to iced coffee that no one knows. Want me to show you? Now the episode itself will end with the manager saying hello and Ken saying hello back after he sets down Toca. Okay, so now that we are through half of the episodes, I'm going to take a few seconds for a quick plug. So I hope you've been enjoying the video so far, and if you like it, I hope that you'll leave a like. If you want more, I hope you'll subscribe. Also leaving the like to let me know that people did like this, because I know Tokyo Ghoul content has done well on the channel before, so I wanted to do more, and this is the most intensive video I've ever done in my life. This is probably, by the time I'm done editing, over 50 hours of work. So I really would appreciate it if you'd let me know that you did like this, or subscribe to stick around for more. Anyway, I'll stop rambling and let you get back to the video you want to see here. So episode 7 will start the same, with Hinami leaving and Tsukiyama coming and them going to the bookstore from season 1. Rather than Toca meeting Ken on the bridge later, they will talk in the kind of spare bedroom above Onteku here. So Toca is going to wake up severely beaten and still very injured, with Ken sitting in the corner of the room. Now, she's going to yell at him, she's going to ask, what the hell were you doing? Ken is going to be pretty remorsive, and she's going to do the same thing where she pushes him away even though she wants him there, saying, there's nothing waiting for you here. And this scene, although I don't have specific dialogue in here, is going to be Ken admitting he was an idiot, that he blindly chased power in a terrible way, and that he sees that she's been doing the same thing, that he was putting in danger, and that she's putting them in the same danger. He did exactly the opposite of what he needed to do, and he wants her to do things different because she still has that chance. She isn't as deep as he is in it. He's doing the exact opposite because he got all this power, but he can't control it. We've seen that he has a hard time doing that. And it came out when his friends were in trouble, when he thought his friends were in trouble, thinking that Aito was Toca. So he knows that he doesn't have full control on it, that he can't come back yet. And he doesn't want anyone else to make that same mistake. And he tells her that she is a good fighter, but that there's a better fight out there. And she basically just yells him out of the room, and he leaves. And Yoshimura will say don't listen to her, but Ken, knowing he can't come back yet, will still go to leave. Now, as he does, he'll ask Enji to make sure Hinami gets a book he leaves. I don't have any specifics on what the book is, or any like a cover that could give some sort of symbolism. I just like the idea of showing that Ken still cares, and that he trusts Enji as well to make sure she gets it, and that he'll deliver it to her in the best way possible for her. Now, this episode still remains a lot the same, so Hinami and Tsukiyama will go to the cafe, she'll meet Edo again. We're cutting the whole scene on the bridge with Toca and Ken here, and instead we'll have Yoshimura in his lounge where a weakened Toca enters asking if Ken is gone yet, using her same mannerisms and language saying, "Is that bastard gone yet?" Something like that. He's going to ask why she keeps throwing away every good chance they give her, because they've been very lenient with her. We see that, and this is kind of the point where he calls it. Now, she'll harp on the same point. She'll say, "What do you mean? You don't even understand. You haven't been through this shit." And this is when he'll sit her down and tell her the story of Kuzon. Now, it's a long-ass story. It's one of the longest single points in all of Rude, so it won't be happening now. So when he says he's going to tell her that story, it'll cut to the scene of Tsukiyama and Hinami. And then after that, we'll pick up on a shocked Toca, because it is a quite shocking story. And the manager saying that all the fighting did cost him his first child, and he won't let it take another one, especially when he's not fighting. He'll tell her to rest up, hope she'll honor their wishes in the same way they've been honoring hers, and head back down to the main floor. Now, this is the point where Toca will realize her own weakness. Well, she'll realize that she's been kicking ass. She's been taking names. She's been fighting. But it's been making her weaker. Not just because she's endangering her friends, as we see she brought the doves back to the 20th ward. That she believed that she was in this unique, terrible situation that they didn't understand. When here we see Yoshimura admit to her about his past, that he was in a much worse and basically amplified version of the situation. This is where she sees that she has this father figure here, where she has all these people who want to make a good life for her, and she's been throwing it away. So this is the turning point where she moves from this warlike Toca to more of the traditional Route A Toca we've seen, eventually putting her in a place to own her own cafe and be a quite docile personality. However, she still will retain her mannerisms and the personality that makes her Toca. She will just be more matured now, because she's finally understanding everything and how severe everything is here. Now this will be where the doves visit Onteku, getting the tip from Eto, and that scene will play out the same. Now episode 8 is going to open on the actual story of Kuzon, so replay one of the lines of him introducing the story, play the whole story out there, it happens the same way. Toca and Yuriko discussing your dreams is cut because we really don't have those school scenes, so there's no place for that to go. And instead, this is where we finally get a little bit of the Kami scene from episode 3. So Nishio will come in, if you guys notebook, same way, Toka's gonna go with him. Manager will ask if she's packed, she'll say almost there, so he'll smile, they'll share a smile, she'll leave. He's gonna say, "Why are you coming here? Why would you be interested in this at all?" And she'll say something along the lines of, "Everyone's been doing their part for Onteku, it's time for me to do mine." So we can see that she's finally realizing the battle that she should be fighting here. While at Kami, he'll ditch her the same way, and she'll run into Hide. Now their scene, traditionally in Route A, is very awkward. It plays out awkwardly, I think that's how it was intentioned to be, and it shows kind of each of them sad about Ken. I think we can do that in a better way though. I think that she'll run into Hide, and they'll happily talk about Ken, moving from an awkward first line where you're around someone you don't know, you kind of start ragging on your friends in a joking way, and start talking that way. They'll do the same thing, but with Ken. So we'll have a time cut, the sun will be going down, we see that they've been talking and laughing about his stupid stuff for a while now. So they'll both leave, Toca will go back to Onteku, and she'll start working happily with the manager as Yomo comes in. This is pulling double duty again, where we're seeing that Hide is still relevant, Hide still cares about Ken, and the Toca has shifted, where she just had a kind of usual day. She went and chatted with a friend about another friend. She comes back and starts working with the manager, and she has this nice, peaceful life that she's always wanted. It was right there in front of her, and she finally sees that she can just take it, and she starts to. Everything else will play out the same way, but because the Kuzon scene is so long, we have to shift the start of episode 9 up a little bit. So Shinohara will enter the shop to the scene where it's just him and Yoshimura having coffee, and we'll cut to episode 9, which will take off from there. Now, instead of Enji and Irumi staying behind, it'll just be Enji, and rather than saying the line, "In the end, my wish did not come true," we'll change that to be a line more along the lines of him remarking that he hopes Toca can take all of their wishes to heart for her, now that her and Hinami are away from the action safely with Yomo. Now, instead of Washu and Marude asking a shady figure for permission, which I believe is the Elder Washu, Marde will enter a meeting with a serious aura, and the camera will reveal a shaded Washu saying something along the lines of, "It's time." So this is his first real introduction in a shadier manner, where we're going to use him as more of a respected, yet fearless leader, because he's going to be throwing waves of CCG soldiers into what I call the Aogiri grinder later. The CCG testamentary notes can remain the same as it is without Takizawa and without showing Arima, and we'll have the same graveyard scene with Amon and Akira. However, she will remark on not knowing why her father was proud of him since he couldn't save Mado. But he's always saving her, and she asks why he couldn't do that for her father, which is kind of taking some of the ideas from the bar scene that was supposed to be in episode 6 and putting them here. She'll still try to kiss him and he'll still block her. But we're going to leave this open a little bit. If I was doing more specifics, I'd word the dialogue so that we don't know if she's kissing him romantically or kissing him to test him, to see what he really wants out of this. And him blocking that, I think, is the perfect ending for that and helps develop that duality as well. It's such a great moment for Amon because it shows that he's on this mission, he wants to get shit done, and that's what he's thinking about. Everything from there will happen pretty much the same, except it's just Engie exiting, it's just the apes instead of the Black Dobers fighting the CCG randoms, and Washu will not be entering yet, so the owl will not be fighting them. So Toca's still going to see the announcement and still going to rush out, even though this is a little bit contrary to her character, because she knows what everyone wants for her. She finally has seen that, and she knows what she had, but the key word there is had, because right now, in front of her, it's actually being taken away this time. Not she thinks it's gone, it's actually leaving her, and she just got it. She doesn't want to give it up because, again, even though she's more mature now, this is still Toca. I think she'd still rush out there, still go and try to fight for what she has. So she'll still leave there. Next change comes in episode 10, where rather than Engie fighting that annoying character who just says boy really weirdly, he's going to fight Akira, which balances out the CCG versus Ghoul workload in the final fight, because they're the two characters where without those random goofy CCG members, he's the one who doesn't have anything to do, and she never had anything to do anyway. They don't have any long-standing rivalry or anything, but Engie has been the staple of Onteku, showing what they do for ghouls, that they bring in these violent, damaged people and give them a second chance at life, and Akira, who's trying to take that away from them in the way the CCG does, because she's had things taken away from her by ghouls. So this kind of helps cap off that final ghoul-human parallel scene where they're each taking stuff from each other, and they keep doing it because the other one is, and Engie will throw that in her face. She'll say, hey, why the fuck do you think I was gone for so long? What do you think I was doing? We were helping ghouls. This was a peaceful place. And she'll just say, it doesn't matter. You'll still ghouls. So she will deal a fatal blow just as Toca shows up. And this will send her into a full rage because, again, this is the staple of Onteku. The character that is Engie besides Yoshimura. So she's going to, this is her life dying in front of her eyes. So she will go into a rage. She'll scream about how she let Akira go, but she's still coming back to take everything from her. And that they don't learn their lesson, so there's nothing else she can do. So she basically tosses Akira. I think this is one time where it's good to have a pretty imbalanced fight. Even though I hate that Akira doesn't do super well, where her fights are a one win and 2 losses, kind of. She's just getting saved a lot. She won't get saved here, but I wish I could have done more with making her more developed as a strong character. Now, before finishing her, she'll look over past Engie's body and see the absolute destruction that's happening from this raid, of both ghouls, of both humans, of just everyone dead, buildings destroyed, and her fists will loosen before tightening back up and hitting Akira one last time as the screen cuts to black. We'll come back to that later. Now, Ken entering the fight, since he won't be saving Engie or Irimi, will be changed to him breaking the CCG lines, destroying as many weapons as he can, and trapping soldiers behind rubble without killing them. We're cutting Mado's ghost talking to Shinohara back in the owl fight, which is going to start as Shinohara and Iwo and Juzo fighting the owl rather than him fighting these random CCG soldiers. So we're cutting the motto scene because we already covered. We really don't need that stuff in here. Instead of there being 5 of them there and taking down the owl on their own, it'll be those 3. The owl will escape up the building, Juzo will chase him, and things will look bad for the CCG, but Arima enters, wounds the owl, and with his help and him dealing a brunt and taking the brunt of everything, they manage to bring down the owl. Now, Arima had to be brought in here to compensate for the lack of the extra CCG members, but it also makes sense that they'd bring him in to take down the person they think is leading the organization that poses the most threat to them out of anything. So I think it makes sense to bring him in here, and I like that his introduction isn't a flashback of him vaguely running at the owl, but him taking down the owl. The first thing we see of him is him being an absolute badass, which, with his personality being how it is the most we're going to get out of him. So here, we're at the end of this episode, we're just cutting Kaneki breaching the line because we already put that up earlier, and Toca tailing the CCG because we already know what she is doing. Now, the one-eyed owl enters at the end of that fight when the CCG is celebrating about bringing down the owl. So here at the beginning of episode 11, Shinohara, Juzo, Iwo, and Arima continue to fight the one-eyed owl. That's only a change because Arima is brought in earlier. Arima will get hit to the side, allowing Juzo to rush in recklessly as he does, get hurt. Shinohara will save him, so that will all play out the same way, with everyone else kind of getting too damaged and Arima fighting off the one-eyed owl, who eventually escapes. Now, in response to the one-eyed owl, because they didn't know this was happening, and it's a little bit later, they will send in a massive influx of troops. So this is where we see Washu, where the camera is turned the corner or something like that, and we see an absolute massive wave of CCG troops and Washu behind them. This is his introduction as that be-all, end-all leader, throwing waves of troops into the Aogiri grinder, and this is where Ayato, Noro, and Naki will be, taking down all those soldiers as he keeps throwing more and more in without hesitation. I think it makes more sense to have him shown, since that is eventually his role, is kind of standing there stoically, throwing his men at Aogiri. It makes more sense to have his introduction be more related to that than having him being a kind of just expositional character before that. Ken and Amon will fight essentially the same exact way. I like that fight. I think it's one of the best scenes. I think it could be a little bit more balanced, but that's not something we greatly have to go over. And I think that is, with what we've added, a good head to that plot. So rather than Toca being running for 3 episodes, now in this episode, at the end of episode 11, we will see Akira wake up barely in a haze, just as she's being placed down in a safe spot by Toca. She sees her start walking away, and then passes out again. And this is where Toca will flash back to what Yoshimura said, and all the time she made everyone on Anteku worry, and she solemnly walks away from the battle, back to Anteku. And this is the 100% de facto, this is it, Toca's not going back change. Because she's mature enough now to look at it and say, what is this going to do? What is me continuing to fight going to do for anyone? Everything's gone, there's really nothing left to fight for, and there's no point to killing Akira and continuing the cycle that she herself has called out. Ken will make it back to Anteku. His scene with Hide will play out exactly the same. I think it's a very flawed scene. I don't think it makes much sense, but I think it's a good ending to the series, and I like what it was going for and what it did despite it being flawed. So we're keeping most of episode 12 exactly the same and just changing the bits with Toca. Also, Akira, rather than sitting by a dead Amon, will kind of be hobbling her way to a dead Amon. Now, Toca will, rather than be running still, because she was still running at this point in the original Rude, she was running for episodes, will be standing back with Yomo from Anteku and watching it burn as they just kind of solemnly think back on everything they lost up to this point. So flashback to Yoshimura, finish off the kind of father-daughter subplot thing going on there. Yomo will say they have to go, and she'll start to leave with him, but look back to see Ken carrying Hide out of the building. Rather than going to chase them, by the time she looks back, he will already be in range to be in the CCG helicopter spotlight. So seeing that he's spotted that she couldn't run and save him, and save the one bit of her life that's still left is going to be saddening for her. She's going to look kind of depressed, but say to Yomo that there's really nothing they can do, and start crying as they walk away, mumbling that she hopes that Ken doesn't get himself killed, which is her keeping her personality, keeping her mannerisms. Again, it's still Toca, but she knows her fight. She knows what she has to do, and this is the end point for what she was and starting what she will become. From there, everything stays the same. Ken sets Hide down. They have the off-screen fight with Arma. It's open on what happens. There's people missing. And then after the credits, Toca opens Ri for the first time. Okay, wow, it's been an hour and a half of recording. This went way longer than I thought it would. But I have a problem where I think I can talk about Tokyo Ghoul for 5 minutes and end up talking for 10 times that as much time as I wanted. It's a problem. I need like Tokyo Ghoul AA. Is my remake perfect? Hell no. Honestly, it's, again, like I said earlier, it's subjective. It's going to be better to some people. It's going to be worse to some people. And I don't really know what to expect because I've never done this before. It's also weird because I'm kind of making a remake of a remake, where this isn't the intended story anyway. It's an interesting situation, but it's something I wanted to do. It's something I've put a lot of work into over a lot of days. So along that same lines, if you liked it, please leave a like or a comment saying you did, or subscribe for more videos like this or more Tokyo Ghoul videos, because I want to know if I should keep putting this much time into a video, this much recording and scripting and custom synopses and all that good stuff. It was a fun experience. I liked it, and I want to know if you guys did too. There's also, the comment section is great for this, because we probably all have ideas on what we wanted to happen. If you think I changed something I shouldn't have, if you think I should have changed something, if you have any ideas for how you think this should have gone, leave them down in the comments below. For a good month now, I've been trying to get back to every comment, and I do really enjoy seeing them and knowing that you guys are watching my videos and thinking about them, because that's why I do this stuff. That's why I put so much time into talking about this stupid series that has taken over my life. Anyway, if you want more Tokyo Ghoul videos, I'll have those on screen now on some cards. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll stop rambling. It's been an hour and a half. This will probably be an hour edited final video. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope I'll see you again soon. And hopefully, I won't be talking about Tokyo Ghoul.